Windows launched in 1985 as a basic graphical shell sitting on top of MS-DOS. Back then, it was clunky and limited, but Microsoft kept pushing forward through versions like Windows 95, XP, 7, 10, and now Windows 11. What made Windows dominant wasn't just being first, it was compatibility. Windows runs on nearly every PC brand you can think of, handles gaming, office work, creative projects, and coding without forcing you into specific hardware. That flexibility built its empire. But flexibility comes with baggage. Windows demands serious system resources, which means older machines struggle hard. Then there's the update situation. Microsoft pushes frequent patches meant to improve things, but they often interrupt work and occasionally trap systems in endless restart loops. Security is another weak point. Being the most popular OS makes Windows the biggest target for malware and viruses. And we can't forget the blue screen of death, that infamous crash screen that's haunted users since version 1. Mac OS arrived in 2001, built exclusively for Apple hardware. This closed ecosystem approach creates tight integration between software and components, resulting in smooth, stable performance. Creative professionals gravitate toward Mac OS because of apps like Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, and GarageBand. Video editors, graphic designers, and music producers find the workflow intuitive and reliable. If you own other Apple products, Mac OS becomes even more valuable. Messages, calls, and files sync seamlessly between your iPhone, iPad, and Mac. Battery life tends to outlast Windows laptops, and forced updates happen far less frequently. Crashes are rare. The system just works without constant maintenance or troubleshooting. However, that exclusivity creates serious limitations. You're locked into buying expensive Apple hardware with no budget alternatives. Gaming on Mac OS is severely limited because it lacks DirectX support and typically ships with weaker graphics hardware. Some professional software either doesn't exist on Mac OS or arrives as a stripped-down version. You're trading flexibility for stability, and that trade-off doesn't work for everyone. Linux stands apart because it's not one operating system. It's a family of distributions created by Linus Torvalds in 1991 as a free, open-source alternative. Unlike Windows with its heavy requirements or Mac OS with its expensive hardware, Linux runs efficiently on nearly anything. Old laptops that choke on Windows can feel fast again with the right Linux distribution. Massive server farms powering Google, Facebook, and NASA also run Linux because it handles workloads efficiently without licensing costs. Being open source means anyone can modify Linux or create their own version. That's why dozens of distributions exist. Ubuntu and Fedora target regular users with graphical interfaces and app stores. CentOS and Debian focus on servers and professional environments. This flexibility makes Linux powerful for programming, cybersecurity work, and server management. The entire internet infrastructure largely runs on Linux servers. The downside? Linux isn't beginner-friendly. Many distributions rely heavily on text commands instead of clicking through menus. New users often feel lost trying to install software or troubleshoot issues. Mainstream apps and games are built for Windows or Mac OS, so Linux users frequently need to find alternatives or use compatibility layers that don't always work perfectly. It's incredibly powerful if you're willing to learn, but there's definitely a learning curve. Chrome OS launched in 2011 as Google's answer to traditional operating systems. It's lightweight and cloud-focused, designed for users who live inside web browsers. Instead of installing programs locally, Chrome OS runs web apps and stores files on Google's servers. Chromebooks come with Chrome OS pre-installed, offering affordable laptops that boot in seconds and update automatically in the background. The security model is interesting. Because most work happens in the cloud rather than locally, malware has fewer opportunities to cause damage. Files save to Google Drive automatically. The Google Play Store adds Android app support, making Chromebooks more versatile than simple web terminals. Schools and offices love Chromebooks because they're cheap, fast, and require minimal maintenance. But that cloud dependency creates problems. Without internet, Chrome OS becomes severely limited. Desktop applications like full Adobe Photoshop or professional video editors don't run on Chrome OS. Gaming only works through cloud services like GeForce Now, which require fast, stable internet. Heavy multitasking isn't possible because the hardware underneath Chromebooks is typically modest. Chrome OS works brilliantly for browsing, streaming, and basic productivity, but it can't replace a full desktop OS for demanding work. Android dominates the mobile world as Google's open-source smartphone OS. Unlike iOS, which only runs on iPhones, Android powers devices from Samsung, Xiaomi, OnePlus, and countless other manufacturers. This openness creates incredible variety. You can find budget phones under $200 or flagship models with cutting-edge specs and price tags to match. Customization is Android's superpower. Users can change themes, install third-party launchers, modify system behavior, and tweak nearly everything. The Google Play Store offers millions of apps and games. Different manufacturers add their own features and interfaces, so a Samsung phone feels different from a Pixel phone, even though both run Android underneath. However, that openness creates inconsistency. Not every Android device receives regular updates. leaving some phones vulnerable to security risks or stuck on outdated software. Manufacturers often pre-install bloatware, unnecessary apps that waste storage and can't be removed without technical workarounds. Android is powerful and flexible, but it's less optimized than iOS. Apps sometimes lag or drain battery faster on Android compared to iPhones with similar specs. iOS runs exclusively on Apple's iPhones and iPads, giving Apple total control over hardware and software integration. That control results in exceptional stability and long-term support. Even older iPhones receive software updates for years. Something rare in the Android world. The App Store is heavily curated with strict standards that keep malware out and encourage developers to prioritize iOS for new releases. The ecosystem integration rivals Mac OS. Your iPhone connects seamlessly to MacBooks, iPads, Apple Watches, and AirPods. Messages sync across devices. You can start work on one device and continue on another without friction. But iOS comes with Apple's typical restrictions. You can't customize home screens freely, install apps from outside the App Store, or transfer files easily unless you stay within Apple's ecosystem. Want expandable storage? Not happening. Headphone jack? Gone years ago. And the price tag stays consistently high, even when Apple reuses designs across multiple iPhone generations. If you value freedom and flexibility, iOS will feel limiting. Unix traces back to the late 1960s when AT&T developed it at Bell Labs. It's one of the oldest operating systems still in use, and the foundation for many modern systems you interact with daily. Unix was built for multi-user, multitasking environments, primarily targeting servers and high-end computing rather than personal devices. Banks rely on Unix for transaction processing. Scientific research facilities use it for data-heavy computations. The National Weather Service processes massive meteorological datasets on Unix-based systems to generate accurate forecasts. It's designed for reliability and uptime, not casual browsing or gaming. The cost reflects that focus. Unix licensing runs around $1,400 per user. Scale that to a company with 250 users, and you're looking at over $350 million for a full deployment. That's not a typo. Unix isn't marketed to everyday consumers because it doesn't need to be. Its strength lies in enterprise environments where stability and performance justify the investment. BSD stands for Berkeley Software Distribution, a family of operating systems that branched off from Unix in the 1970s at the University of California, Berkeley. While Unix went commercial, BSD remained open and community-driven, attracting developers who valued freedom and control. Today, BSD variants power systems you probably use without realizing it. PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 run modified FreeBSD under the hood. Netflix streams content through servers built on FreeBSD because of its efficient networking stack. Firewalls like pfSense and OPNsense rely on BSD's security-focused design. BSD excels at resource management and handling heavy workloads, making it ideal for networking equipment, embedded systems, and specialized servers. The main BSD flavors include FreeBSD, which focuses on performance and features, OpenBSD, which prioritizes security above everything else, and NetBSD, designed for portability across different hardware architectures. You won't find BSD on consumer laptops because it's not built for that. It's a tool for experts who need precise control over their systems. So where does this leave you? If you want the widest software compatibility and don't mind occasional crashes or updates, Windows makes sense. It runs on nearly any hardware and supports the most games and professional software. Mac OS suits creative professionals who value stability and ecosystem integration, assuming you can afford the hardware and don't need extensive gaming. Linux appeals to developers, privacy advocates, and anyone comfortable with technical challenges in exchange for complete control and zero licensing costs. Chrome OS works for users whose lives revolve around web browsers and cloud services, offering simplicity and affordability at the expense of power. Android gives you choice and customization across countless devices and price points, though update support varies wildly. iOS delivers polish, security, and long-term software support, but locks you into Apple's ecosystem with limited flexibility. Unix and BSD handle enterprise and specialized tasks where consumer operating systems would crumble under the workload. Each operating system emerged from different needs and philosophies. Windows aimed for universal compatibility. Apple prioritized integration and user experience. Linux championed freedom and transparency. Google bet on the cloud. Mobile platforms adapted desktop concepts for touch interfaces and constant connectivity. Unix and BSD focused on stability and performance for critical infrastructure. None of them is objectively best because they solve different problems for different users. Your choice depends on what you value most: performance, flexibility, simplicity, cost, security, ecosystem. Every operating system makes trade-offs. emphasizing certain strengths while accepting specific weaknesses. Windows trades stability for compatibility. Mac OS trades affordability for optimization. Linux trades ease of use for control. Chrome OS trades power for simplicity. Android trades consistency for variety. iOS trades freedom for polish. Technology evolves constantly and operating systems adapt or fade away. Windows shifted from desktop dominance to cloud integration. Mac OS became Unix-based under the hood. Linux fragmented into hundreds of distributions, serving niches from pen testing to media centers. Mobile platforms absorbed features from desktops while inventing new interaction paradigms. The lines blur as systems borrow ideas from each other, yet fundamental differences remain. What you choose today isn't permanent. You can switch operating systems, run multiple systems on one machine, or use different systems for different tasks. The barrier to entry keeps dropping as installation processes simplify and compatibility layers improve. Experimenting costs less than ever, and understanding your options gives you control over your digital environment rather than accepting whatever came pre-installed. Now you know what's actually running when you turn on your device and why it works the way it. The mistake most people make is assuming one operating system works for everyone, or worse, that the one they use is objectively superior. It's not about best or worst. It's about alignment between what the system offers and what you need from it. If your current setup frustrates you daily, maybe you're using the wrong tool for your specific job. And if you've never questioned whether alternatives exist, you might be missing options that better fit how you actually work and live.